Hello everyone, thank you so much for joining my video. If this is your first time here, please like this video and subscribe. It is awesome all the time. Every time I see a new subscriber, I feel so excited because I feel like there is a new member to my village. Now, I've always wanted to make a video regarding this weird case phenomenon type of situation, right? In this video we'll be discussing vampires, real life vampires, specifically people's stories that claims that they have encountered vampires. So in this video I've put together a few stories after this lady just went viral for saying that she met a vampire in her Lyft share drive. So now, because of her story, a lot of people have been downloading their own specific stories to their TikTok account, and it's just been the most interesting thing that even here in these United States, you can't make this up. I am not somebody that takes this very lightly. I am a firm believer that there are spirits and there are beings among us. And if you know, you know. I'm not here to sell anything to you, but if this is something that you like yourself, I hope you get entertained with what I found for you. And I really want to know, what do you guys think about this whole topic about vampires or werewolves or all these mythical creatures possibly being amongst us? So, like I said, I can't wait to see what you guys have to say. And I hope I see you again. Have a great day. Bye bye.
Hello, TikTok. Fagger Freestyle here with another story time about the time I met a vampire. I tried to do this story the other day on live and it just did not work out. But anyway, I just decided to record a video. People have been asking me about the story, so here it goes. I'm a rideshare driver in New Orleans. So, of course, I encounter all types of people from all walks of life. So, one particular ride was very interesting. Now, this was a couple of years ago when this occurred. And I'm going to tell you, for the most part, I remember what she said. I do not remember what she looked like. And there are some details that when the experience was over, like I had completely forgotten some things. But anyway, so I'm riding, pick up this passenger, and I remember our conversation. And the craziest thing is I can remember her voice. I can, and even as I'm telling you this, I can hear her voice in my head. And I can even picture like this part of her face around her mouth, her lips. I can see them moving as she's talking to me. And I remember her hand being on my shoulder, and I remember what it felt like when she touched me. But a lot of other stuff, it's like was just completely erased. So I pick her up, and I do know that we were having conversation. I talked to many of my passengers, and she is telling me I have really great energy. So I told her thank you. You know, she asked me some things about myself, you know, nothing too private, nothing with too many details. So, you know, I just kind of gave her some general info. And I remember her telling me that she wasn't from here. That I do remember. And then she proceeds to tell me how much she loved New Orleans, how much she loved being there, living there, etc., etc. I do recall asking her where she was from originally, and all she told me was that she was from very far away. And it's funny again because I'm hearing her voice in my head as this is weird. And I've never shared this story with anybody, so TikTok, you're getting it first. She touched my shoulder at one point, and this is where things got really strange. She touched my shoulder, and I felt like I just froze. And even as I'm talking to you right now, I can distinctly remember that feeling of feeling frozen. And my hands were on the wheel because I could see my hands on the wheel. The car wasn't moving. And being frozen in that moment, I hear her voice, but not like I'm here talking to you in my head. I hear her voice telling me, don't be scared, and she's not going to harm me. And then after that, we're moving again. And I remember kind of turning and looking like that, and she was sitting back in the seat and her hands were on her lap. And I said, what did you do to me? And she just smiled. And she says, I just leached some of your energy. And I said, what? She said, I just leached some of your energy. She said, this is going to sound crazy, but I can assure you it's true. I'm a vampire. She said, but I'm not the type of vampire that you've been taught about in books and movies. She said, those types of vampires exist, but they're very rare these days. I'm a vampire that feeds off of energy. And all I have to do is touch you to get it. She said, New Orleans is a great place for her and her kind to exist. And that there are quite a few members of their tribe, is what she called them. I think I remember this part of our conversation so significantly because I believe when she touched me, she implanted something in my mind, whether you want to call it a memory or a thought or an idea. But she gave me something of herself, probably, to where I can recall this portion of the interaction between us. Maybe she knew that eventually I would share the story with others and therefore maybe make it a little bit more acceptable for them to start, for her and her members to start presenting themselves. I don't know. I don't know why she even chose me for this. But she told me that there are vampires that survive off of good energy. There are vampires that survive off of bad energy. There are vampires that survive off of sexual energy. And there are vampires that survive off of blood. And New Orleans is the only place in the world where you can find members of all four of those vampire tribes. Maybe she wanted me to remember this portion of it as a warning. I don't know. But I know she wasn't lying just because of how I felt. And even now, it's crazy because I still feel like her hand is on my shoulder, which makes me wonder, when she touched me, did she create some type of psychic connection between the two of us? I don't know, but I think I need to end this. Anyway, I don't remember where I dropped her off at. I don't even remember dropping her off. The next thing I remember doing clearly was being in a part of town that I didn't remember how I even got there. And it was like 2 hours later. And I was just in a parking lot. Just in a parking lot. And I know it sounds weird, y'all. I think I probably shouldn't even recorded this. I probably shouldn't even be talking. I probably should not even be talking about this. I shouldn't.
I believe her. I believe her. I believe her. And in case if you didn't catch that, I believe her. Especially the way how she ended that video. It was obvious she's terrified.
There's a lady on TikTok talking about her encounter with vampires, so I might as well talk about mine. This New Year's Eve, I was driving Lyft and I picked up an order, and it ended up being at like a place that used to be a church, but it wasn't a church anymore, obviously, if you saw the festivities that was going on. There were like people with cloaks and like dark hair and heavy eyeliner, and there was like a red glow from the building coming out. 4 guys got into my car. As soon as they got into the car, I felt a chill. And yes, it was winter, but it was a different kind of chill. I turned around and looked at them, and I immediately knew they were vampires. And it wasn't even just like a thought, it was more so a knowing. Before they got into the car, I was thinking like maybe they were devil worshippers, because I had seen like a goat head and like the typical symbols that you see associated with that. But I was like, no, these are vampires. There were 2 brunettes and 2 blondes. They all had blue eyes. Not that mean anything, but their eyes were almost hypnotically blue. They were so clear, you could see through their, like, not their soul, but I can't even describe it. Their skin was white, but not white like crayon white, but it was very pale, but it was not a pale like, you know, some like white people are like, oh, I'm so pale. Even like red, people with red hair, how pale. It was still a different kind of pale, because even regular people, when they're pale, there's still some warmness to their skin. Like their skin looked cold. I don't know how to describe it, but it was more so the feeling of me knowing. Immediately, I start to panic. My heart is racing. I'm feeling like, is it too late to reject a call? Like, can I even ask them to leave the vehicle? And then I started thinking, okay, if I am panicking and my blood pressure is rising, then I'm like pushing more blood through my veins, which may mean that I may seem more appetizing to them. This is all stuff that's going through my mind. The man behind me, the blonde, who was like in the middle, touches my shoulder, and immediately it's like somebody poured warm honey over me. Like that is the calm just spreading down my body. It was like immediately I felt relaxed, almost like I was in a trance, kind of there, but like watching myself. I can't even really describe it. And I knew at that moment that I wasn't necessarily in danger. So then the guy is like, well, our car is only a few blocks away, which I could tell from looking at the app. And he's like, but before we get there, we need you to answer a question, and you have to think very carefully about this. So now I'm like, okay, this answer is going to determine if I go home to my children or not. And it could just be my imagination and like me jumping the gun, and he could have been joking, but it didn't feel jokey. So he's like, okay, well, we have 2 separate cars. How would you group us together? Who should ride with who? What? So I'm like, I look back at them, and they're smiling and they're kind of giggling. Now their teeth don't look like regular teeth, but they don't look like the typical vampire teeth either. But they definitely did not look like human teeth. Their canines were a little bit more pronounced, but not in a dramatic, fake way. I can't even freaking describe it. And actually, if I had to describe them, to sketch them out right now, I couldn't even, because it's like they're a memory, but not like a typical memory, like a memory behind a memory. I can't describe it. But anyways, I knew it. I'm like, you're vampires. Yes. I heard the answer in my head. No, I'm looking at them through because I'm like, if they lunge for jugular, I'm gonna crash us all. But I grouped the opposite hair colors together. And the guy said, well, why'd you do that? I said, I don't know, it just felt right. He said, excellent choice. He took out his phone and he's like, I'm gonna start my car now. And I'm like, you can start your car from my car? And he's like, yeah, but we like you. You'll get home safe. Good. Like, you'll get home safe tonight. Have a good night. And I was like, yeah, I was kind of thinking that, you know, doing Lyft on New Year's Eve could be dangerous, because like, who knows what kind. I was trying to make it seem like I didn't think they were the danger, but just let them know, like, in case they heard me panicking. Oh, the one that saw the vampire. But anyways, they got out and they gave me my biggest tip of the night. You would think that would have been my last ride for the night, but no, I kept going. I made it home, and I didn't tell any other person about this story because, like, are you supposed to share vampire stories? I don't know. However, I just did. So just know that there are other beings in this world besides us, and maybe they're not all so dangerous.
Have y'all seen that story about that Uber or Lyft driver that met the vampire in New Orleans? That story made me think about a story that happened to me that was similar, but it was in Atlanta. But this happened a while ago. I was super young, and the details of the stories don't show y'all how long ago this was. This was in a time where it was just becoming cool to meet people online. Like, you would meet new people on MySpace and be like, oh, they live in the same area. Shoot, let's hang out, let's chill, whatever. This was also during the time where I was on this spiritual, like supernatural kind of awakening time. And everything on my page was talking about like spiritual, supernatural stuff and whatever. So naturally, I would have interesting conversations with people who were like into the same thing. This kid hit me up who was about the same age as me, I think maybe a little bit older, and was asking me, hey, did you read about this? Did you read about this? Have you heard about this? And all the stuff he was talking about, I was like, nah, I never heard of that. Wow, whoa, it's crazy. So we would always have these crazy conversations until we got to the point where he was like, you should come hang out. I got some stuff I could show you, like, that I've done and that I've seen. You should come chill. I'm like, what? Yeah. This is about to put into perspective how long ago this was. So to get to his house, I had to print out directions on MapQuest, which was, at the time I was living with my best friend who's like my brother, and I used his mom's car so I could go. I was like, hey, I'm gonna go hang out with a friend or whatever. She was like, cool, whatever. So I printed the directions out, drove to the house. I pull up to this house, and it is a mansion, like the biggest house I think I've ever seen. And as the gate is opening, he's walking down the driveway. He's like, what's up? I'm like, what's up? What do your parents do? Just kind of like, oh, yeah, they're into everything. They're not in town right now, whatever. When I tell you it was like a circle driveway, it had like Bentleys and like all kind of expensive cars in the driveway. And I'm just kind of like nervous because this is the first time that I've ever been around money like that. We walk into the house through this huge ass garage, and the house has this weird feeling. It like feels homey, but feels expansive at the same time, like a warehouse. It was the weirdest feeling. I can't really put my finger on it, but it felt vast and at the same time cozy. This is where it starts getting. As we go through the house, each room is themed to like a different period of humanity. I'm talking like big suits of armor in one room, and then it's like Asian inspired stuff and ancient stuff. And I'm like, so do your parents collect things? Or at this point, I'm like, what's happening in here? We're walking through all these rooms, and we finally get to a hallway that looks just like any other house, any other hallway. His room was to the right. There was a restroom to the straight ahead, and then branches off to the left to other rooms and stuff. Normal. This is where it kind of linked to the other girl story, and what made me think about this again was I remember the details, but I don't remember the details. Like, I remember we talked about socials, birth certificates. He was telling me how to use my brother's birth certificate to get him out of jail. Other kind of secrets about the country, the world, all kind of stuff I remember, but don't remember. I remember what he looks like, but I can't quite remember what he looks like. I remember what he sounds like. I remember what the room looked like. I remember what the bathroom looked like. And let me tell y'all about what I found in that bathroom. So this is what made me start going on a rabbit hole and researching things, because it was this big book. It was a huge, I don't even think I've ever seen a book this big, but it was like leather bound. You could tell it was really old. When I opened the book, on the first page were like these drawings, and it was these beings, and it was kind of like a family tree type thing. And the first one was saying like, this is this being, and then this is this being's kids, and then this is whatever. These beings looked like us, but pitch black. And these were drawings in the beginning. So the beginning of the book was drawings. They were pitch black, like the color black. All you could see was eyes. I'm flipping through the pages, and I'm feeling like I'm invading privacy. I'm seeing something I'm not supposed to see. And as I'm flipping through the book, it's saying names of what these beings are, who they are, like description of who they are. It was like biographies, but very short descriptions. And I can't really remember details, but I do remember as the book got further, it became less of drawings and more of pictures. And once it started becoming pictures, I got scared. I grabbed the book and I take it out there, and I'm like, what is this? What is this? What? He goes, oh, that's the book of Anu, the Anunnaki. It shows you who all the Anunnaki are up to this day. Some of humanity comes from them. It's kind of like a story of God and the angels and blah, blah, blah. What? Mind you, we had a full-fledged conversation after that. I remember I was there for quite some time after that, and I remember him explaining it to me, going through the pages and talking, but I don't remember none of that. It's like I'm looking at a memory on mute. I came to an end. I remember getting back into my car, and like immediately after I left, I called my brother while I was on the way, and I was like, "You'll never believe this, blah blah blah," because we were both on this supernatural spiritual journey. I'm like, he said this, da, da, da. My brother's like, "I want to meet him. I want to meet him too." I'm like, "Yeah, I think you can meet him too." In like hours, I've been gone for I don't even know how long, and I'm telling him more and more stuff about the stuff I remember, and he's like, "I want to meet him. I want to meet him." I'm like, "Bet, I got these directions I printed from MapQuest. Let's go tomorrow." I'm sure he's not gonna carry his parents out of town right now. This is where it gets all the way crazy. So the next day, we followed the directions that were printed on MapQuest back to that same place. We get there, it's an open field. Nothing's there.
Would ever believe you. I don't think I've ever told this story before because I would sound like an insane person, but I know it happened. I want to be creeped out. I just watched the video of the girl, the Lyft driver in New Orleans, who says she picked up a vampire. I want more stories like that, but I'll tell you mine. When I was 7, my family was living in a suburb of Chicago, about 30 minutes southwest of the city. My parents were out. They went bowling every Friday night, so I know it was a Friday. Our babysitter, Maria, was over. She was a teenager, probably 16, 17 at the time, and my little sister was about 2. We lived in a split level, so my sister and Maria are downstairs, and I'm in the kitchen. I was looking out the back window, honestly probably waiting for our little neighbor boy to come outside because I had a crush on him, and I was always running outside whenever I saw he would come out. But in our backyard, there was an apple tree, there was a lake, and then there was a fence separating our yard from the neighbor boy's house. It's dusk. The sun is pretty much set, and I see a black panther jump over the fence and come down, stand underneath the apple tree. It was so tall that its shoulders almost came up to the first set of branches. Jet black fur. And we had a house cat, so I know what the house cat size is in relation to this thing. This thing was easily 6 or 7 times the size of our cat. So I start calling for Maria, yelling at her to come up to the kitchen to see this black panther in our backyard. She was taking her time. My sister was crying and she was tending to her. I'm standing there mesmerized by this black panther, and it turns and it looks at me and it makes eye contact, and on its head, this thing was jet black, but on its head it had a little patch of white fur just going right like this. And we just stare at each other for a good 5 seconds or so. I hear Maria stirring. She's coming into the kitchen, and as she's walking into the kitchen, the panther runs into the lake. I was like, there was a panther in our backyard. Maria's like, it was just a house cat. I'm like, no, it was a panther. Fast forward to later on that night, my parents still aren't home. I'm in bed. I hear a doorbell. It's probably close to 11 o'clock because my parents were still out. They usually came home around 1 in the morning. So naturally I hear the doorbell ring. I get out of bed. I go to the top of the stairs and I see Maria answering the door. And I'm creeping on the stairs, and she lets this man in, and he's wearing all black. He was very pale. And I hear him tell her basically that he was a traveler who lost his way and he needed to use our phone. It was the 90s, so people didn't have cell phones easily accessible, so he just wanted to use our landline. So Maria lets him in. He's using the phone. It's very muffled. I can't hear what he's saying. I remember the conversation, but I don't. That's where mine and this girl's stories are similar. So after he makes his phone call, he's turning to leave. He walks past the stairs. He looks up at me because I'm still sitting at the top of it, and I see on his head he has a little patch of white hair in the same spot that the panther had. And he looks at Maria and he goes, "Thank you for your help. It's really easy to get lost in the shadows." And he leaves. Now this man shook me. I could not sleep that night. So when my parents got home, I was still awake in bed. I ran downstairs. I told them all about the panther. They chalked it up to an overactive imagination, and they were like, it was just a house cat. You're just letting your imagination get the best of you. And I told them about the man. They were pissed. They were fuming. They fired Maria for letting a strange man into our house, as they should have. But yeah, I don't know. I've looked into it. There have been tons of Black Panther sightings all over Illinois, close to Chicago, and yet the Department of Natural Resources maintains that there are no Black Panthers in Illinois. So yeah, stitch this or let me know in the comments your story, because I know I'm not the only one.
This original upload was by T.O., and I needed to make a response, and I hope this gets back to him, because if what he's saying is true, we actually had a very similar experience to each other. I met a man named Vincent, and Vincent told me that he came from a very special family, a family that you would consider to be similar to a vampire, but not quite a vampire. Now, this was a phase of my life where I was going through a lot of negative things at home, and I was definitely having some cries for help. And this man came online, sent me some money, and then he gave me some really good life advice. And then he offered me to come meet him, and I was a minor. This was risky. I was at a point in my life where I didn't care, and I just went and did it. So you nailed all the details of what they were like, what the house was like, and this might not be the same people. This most likely isn't. Most likely probably not even the same house, maybe not the same items, but from what you described, it was very similar, close enough that it hit home in a hard way. So from what he was telling me, and again, take everything with a grain of salt, he said they don't have immortality, that they did live quite a bit longer than normal humans, that their strength was around like double of what it would be for somebody of their normal size, and speed-wise, they were really fast as well. I saw his strength, which for sure did not match with his physique. He was definitely what I would consider to be abnormally strong. Now, his interest in me, outside of the fact that I don't feel like when I was around him, I was a person, which is a really hard thing to describe. But he wanted my story. He just wanted to know what was going on with me, what led to where I had been, and what occurred in my life to turn me into the kind of person that I was becoming. And I gave him that story. I sat there and I info dumped. I told him every single word, and he listened, which was really needed at that time, honestly. Now, I'm telling him things that when I talk about now, people give me a lot of sympathy. They tell me how proud of me they are that I went through it, or rather came through it, and I'm still functional. And he just digested it like I was narrating a book to him, a very interesting book. And he just wanted more and more details about what things were like, and explained to me that he wasn't really able to go out into the world. Now, looking back, this could have very easily been a much more dangerous situation than it was. This could have been, like an Epstein thing, and I'm very glad that it wasn't. I'm getting back safe, and after talking to him, I felt different. Like, he gave me really good advice. He helped me with a few things, and my life kind of got back on track. And for the next almost year of my life, I had the best luck that I've ever had, and things took a different turn where I was able to get a lot of help that just was inaccessible. And I'm not going to go into the details of what exactly was going on, but the help came out of nowhere, and it was a very, very good help. And I would not be sitting here if it wasn't for his help. And there's just a lot more that I would love to say, but I think I would rather talk to T.O. personally if I get the chance. Maybe we can share notes, because I don't want to give any information that could get misconstrued.
Well, I see vampires in New Orleans is trending, and as someone who lived in New Orleans for 12 years and worked on Bourbon Street almost every night of those 12 years, and was around a lot of darkness there, I can tell you I met a lot of something. Vampires in particular. Anybody who told me they were a vampire? No. Did I meet the devil? Well, if you were around the early days of the House of Blues back in the day, you might know what I'm talking about. And I also met Michael the Archangel. Now, that's a story I've done before. If you want to hear it, let me know. But would it shock me if there was major supernatural and strange things going on? Have you ever been to New Orleans? No, not shocking. But I guess I never got the chance to meet someone who claimed to be a vampire. There are a lot of vampire fans there because of Anne Rice, and a lot of people who dress like vampires to look cool and to feel like they were, mysterious. But let me tell you something. The real people walking around New Orleans, they're a hell of a lot scarier.
Now, you may not believe it, but the myth of vampires in New Orleans is deeply rooted in its history and cultural lore. One of the most famous figures in New Orleans vampire lore is the Count Saint-Germain, the infamous Count Saint-Germain. Now, why do I say that? He's known as the man who does not die and who knows everything. People have been seeing this man roaming the French Quarter since the 18th century. New Orleans has long been associated with tales of the undead, and the myth of vampires continues to captivate locals and visitors alike. Now, this could be just adding to the aura and mystery of intrigue around New Orleans, but me personally, I choose to believe it. If you have a story or a vampire sighting in New Orleans, stitch this and let us know.